Hey there, aviators! I am Captain Pankaj Pahil. I am a pilot, a flight instructor, and a ground instructor. Over the last 17 years, I've had the incredible privilege of teaching and flying in various countries all across the globe, and I've poured literally all of that practical experience into the curriculum we're covering today. So, welcome to this definitive explainer on DGCA air regulations. In this masterclass, we are going to thoroughly decode aircraft nationality and registration marks. Okay, let's dive right into this. Before we get into the heavy regulatory stuff, I really want you to let this sink in. The discipline you show in learning the regulations on the ground is the exact discipline that will keep you alive in the air. Now, I don't just say this to sound strict, Aviation is a totally unforgiving environment. The focus you bring to understanding these rules today directly translates to your situational awareness and your safety tomorrow. So sit up, grab those notebooks, and let's get into a serious, focused mindset. All right, here is our strict syllabus for today's session. 1. The global framework. 2. The Indian mark structure. 3. Dimensions and placement. 4. Certificates and cancellations. 5. Aircraft leasing. And finally, 6. A DGCA rapid recall session to really lock it all in. Okay, Section 1, the global framework. We're looking at the big picture, from the ITU to the ICAO. To truly grasp aircraft registration, you kind of have to zoom out and look at the global chain of command. It all starts with the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union. The ITU's whole job is to allocate common global radio signs to different countries. They are basically the overarching authority for the entire global radio spectrum. So once the ITU allocates a big block of symbols to a country, that ICAO contracting state, the state of registry, steps in. The state then selects specific marks from that allotted block, assigning a unique combination of 1 to 5 digits, letters, or a mix of both to an individual aircraft. The absolutely crucial takeaways here is this: the ITU allocates the global block, but the state assigns the specific aircraft mark. Moving right along to Section 2, the Indian mark structure. We'll be covering civil, military, and drones. Now that we've got the global flow down, let's bring it home and see how India specifically applies these rules. I want you to write this down exactly as you see it. For civil aircraft in India, the nationality mark is VT, followed by a hyphen, and then a registration mark made up of 3 Roman letters without any ornamentation. For example, VTEPC. Now, if it's an Air Force aircraft, that nationality mark changes over to VU, and with the massive rise of drones recently, India uses the letter U for unmanned aircraft, followed by a 6 alphanumeric character combination, something like UB67DFC. So that's VT for civil, VU for Air Force, and U for unmanned. Lock that in. Okay, lean in and listen closely, because I guarantee you are going to see this when you're testing. This is a massive DGCA exam trap. The exam will absolutely try to confuse you on the difference between allotment and usage. Globally, the ITU allotted the entire block of letters from AT to AW to India. Think of that as our international real estate. However, what do we actually use? We use the pre-independence marks VT and VU. Do not confuse the global allotment of AT to AW with the actual national usage of VT and VU. Seriously, mark this in red in your notes. All right, Section 3, dimensions and placement. Where exactly do these marks belong on the aircraft? First up, let's talk about what you absolutely cannot paint on an aircraft. And what's really interesting here is the logic behind these prohibited marks. Registration letters must never, ever be used if they can be confused with urgent or distress signals. So if you are flying, you cannot have a registration mark that spells out SOS, which we all know is the universal distress signal. You also can't use PAN or XXX because those denote urgency. You are also strictly prohibited from using 3-letter Q codes or the 5-letter codes from the International Code of Signals. The reasoning here is pure safety. Air traffic control cannot be looking at your tail number and mistakenly think you are declaring an in-flight emergency. Now, when we're dealing with heavier-than-air aircraft, you really need to notice the precise mathematical standards required by the regulations. You have to visually lock in this spatial memorization because the DGCA loves, and I mean loves, testing on exact centimeters. The marks must be painted cleanly, and the letters and numbers in each separate group must be of equal height. To help you memorize this instantly, I've got a simple little memory hack for you. Just think about where you are looking. If you are looking up or down, like looking at the wings of an airplane or looking up at a lighter-than-air balloon, those marks need to be big to be seen from a distance, so the height must be 50 centimeters or more. But if you are looking sideways at the fuselage or the vertical tail surfaces, the marks can be slightly smaller. The rule for sideways is 30 centimeters or more. Up and down is 50, sideways is 30. But it's not all just about the paint. There is an actual physical hardware requirement too. Every single aircraft must carry an identification plate inscribed with its nationality and registration mark. And note, this isn't just some plastic sticker. It legally must be made of fireproof metal or a suitable fireproof material. For manned aircraft, it has to be secured in a really prominent position near the main entrance. Even balloons and drones need them, affixed securely to the payload or the exterior. Why? Because in the terrible event of a catastrophic accident, this fireproof plate ensures the aircraft can still be legally identified. Moving into Section 4, Certificates and Cancellations. Let's navigate these administrative rules. This brings us to the really critical paperwork. Meet the Certificate of Registration, or the COR. The issuing authority for this in India is the central government. This document is basically the aircraft's birth certificate and passport rolled into one. It lists the type of aircraft, the constructor's number, the year of manufacture, the owner's details, and its usual station. And right here is a major exam point. What is the validity rule? The certificate of registration is valid from the date of registration until it is canceled by the DGCA. Let me repeat that. It doesn't magically expire every year on a certain date. It remains valid until a specific cancellation trigger is hit. So what exactly are those cancellation triggers? Look at how we visually mapped this out here. The DGCA will pull your registration if the aircraft no longer conforms to the rules, or if you somehow obtained the registration using false information. If you go and suitably register the aircraft in a totally different country, your Indian registration is automatically canceled. If the aircraft is completely destroyed in an accident, yep, it's canceled. But look at trigger number 7 over on the right. This is a super sneaky one. If the aircraft's certificate of airworthiness has been expired for 5 years or more, the DGCA will step in and cancel the certificate of registration. Section 5, Aircraft Leasing. We really need to understand the lessor versus the lessee here. The aircraft leasing sector in India is just exploding right now, and the DGCA has very strict rules on how this paperwork is managed. You absolutely must clearly and distinctively separate the two parties involved in a lease. The lessor is the party who furnishes the aircraft. They are essentially handing over the keys in exchange for compensation or hire. The lessee, on the other hand, is the party actually using the aircraft under the lease provisions. Now, the absolute most important phrase to remember here is operational control. The lessee is the one who holds the necessary economic and operating authority, and therefore it's the lessee who exercises operational control. And because leasing involves massive financial transactions, India went ahead and established GIFT City in Gujarat as its first international financial services center. Any leasing company undertaking aircraft leasing in India must be approved by the unified authority governing this zone, which is the IFSCA. Not the DGCA, not the Ministry of Civil Aviation, but the IFSCA. Keep that straight. All right, Section 6, DGCA Rapid Recall. It is time to test your knowledge. Okay, aviators, I need your ultimate attention right now. Here is your cheat sheet. I want you to screenshot this in your mind right now. The authority trap. The ITU allots global marks, but the ICAO state assigns the specific marks. The dimensions rule of thumb. Look up or down, it's 50 centimeters. Look sideways, it's 30 centimeters. The India marks cheat. We are allotted AT to AW, but we actually use VT, VU, and U, and the administrative gotchas. COR validity is till canceled. Lease approval goes through the IFSCA, and operational control belongs entirely to the lessee. Let's actually test that out right now. Here is a real-world DGCA prep question based on the exact regulations we just covered. Who exercises operational control over the leased aircraft? Is it A, the lessor, B, the lessee, or C, the IFSCA? Take a beat, mentally lock in your answer. All right, if you chose B, the lessee, you nailed it. You are absolutely correct. The logic here is simple but incredibly crucial. The lessee holds the operating authority. Exercising operational control literally means the lessee is the one actively controlling the flight and cabin crew members, managing the ground personnel and dispatchers, and utilizing the ground facilities to actually fly that aircraft. The lessor just provided the hardware, right? The lessee runs the show. Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to really cement today's masterclass. If your aircraft's certificate of airworthiness sits completely expired for 5 long years, what exactly happens to your certificate of registration? As we discussed, the DGCA steps in and cancels it. That exact level of detail is what separates a truly prepared aviator from an unprepared one. So review these regulations, memorize these traps, and bring this exact discipline to your studies. I am Captain Pankaj Pahil, and until next time, study hard and fly safe.